Most everyone was wandering the beach, looking for firewood and kindling. I joined in, glad to be doing something. Dr. Robinson, my professor, was the last to arrive. The bonfire crackled, the birchwood was young and wet. Sparks shot into the night sky, then burned out as they fell. My favorite show when I was a kid was Lost in Space. It was about a family traveling the Milky Way, landing on strange planets, encountering all kinds of dangerous elements in the galaxy. They never made it back to Earth the whole time I watched it. It used to depress me. I didn't realize that if they did, the show would end. And later the show was canceled while they were still out in space. The family's name was Robinson. The father was a doctor. I couldn't help but think of the show when the professor introduced himself in class the first day. Dr. Robinson, I wanted to say, you're home. You finally made it back to Earth. I've been so worried all these years. Dr. Robinson refused the beer the guys offered him. Got that covered, he said. He had a flask in his shirt pocket, a thick flannel they all wore like jackets. But what about Molly? Everyone turned to look at me. I got shy and concentrated on watching the embers, like Tinkerbell dancing around and above the flames. I wasn't sure what he wanted from me or why he had said my name. Except for the 3 nursing students who were taking the class to fulfill their breath requirements, I was the only girl in the class and usually felt out of place. I'm sure Molly would like something to drink, Dr. Robinson told the guys. Finley was standing next to me, Dennis Finley, but everyone called him Finley, as if he didn't have a first name. He touched my arm. Do you want something? Okay, I said. I bought a bag of pretzels, but nothing to drink. I didn't know how a party like that worked. Back home in high school, everyone brought their own stuff for the night, but I didn't want to carry a 6-pack to the beach while I was alone and without a car. So I thought I would just skip the drinking, but I was glad to have something to drink. Like everyone, I was better socially when buzzed. Finley moved away from the fire and brought back something in a plastic cup. It was sweet-smelling, something I had never tasted before. Southern Comfort, Finley told me. It's good, I said, before I had even tasted it. I was being weird. I told myself to take it easy. Thanks, I said. Wait, that sounded normal. The cup was full and I took a big drink, which was just as stupid, as it burned the back of my throat when I swallowed. I took several deep breaths to keep myself from coughing it back up. I didn't know what to do, how to act, what to say to anyone. I really didn't know any of the guys, but I wanted to. I thought they were so interesting. They were cool, nature boys. Someone had called them that at the bookstore one day. They were so into the class, so into the outdoors, into nature, the woods, the lake, like modern-day Daniel Boones without the coonskin caps. I stood and took sips of my drink. Finley was tending the fire, so I crouched beside him and pretended like I was helping. He had it under control. It was blazing. I handed him some kindling, and he tossed it on top. I stood up and took a few more sips of my drink. It was helping. I no longer felt like everyone was looking at me. Dr. Robinson was talking in his lecture voice, the way he spoke to us in class. Loud, with long, dramatic pauses, like an actor on stage, but without the hand gestures. The emphasis was on the first words of each sentence. The males are very particular. Mating for them is a careful dance, he said. I was confused, having missed some of what he had been saying. I thought for a moment he was talking about giraffes, but that couldn't be right. But it was. He was talking about giraffes. The male approaches a female once he sees something he likes. He rubs her back, caressing her until she urinates, and then he drinks her pee. With this mouthful, he makes his decision, to mate or not. He got the reaction he wanted. The guys were laughing. No more party awkwardness. He grinned, tipped his flask to his mouth, and drank. The guys seemed like good friends, as if they had known each other for years instead of just a few weeks. The second week of class, they started calling themselves the Carusos, like from Robinson Crusoe, the novel by Daniel Defoe. It didn't really make any sense. It was the character's name in the book, not a band of guys trying to survive in the wilderness, but that's how they saw themselves. They loved their nickname. They were modern-day castaways. I don't know if any of them had read the book. I had. It was dead boring. Someone had told Dr. Robinson about the name. Wonderful, he had said. He thought a group with a purpose was a great idea. The revolution needs numbers, he said. The individuals will have a Sisyphean struggle. It's always good to have help pushing that rock up the hill. I didn't think I was included in the Caruso's Club, but I wanted to be. I didn't remember there being any women on the island, but I couldn't be sure. There had to be girls, right? They were probably just left out of the story. I didn't really know what the club was for. Did they have secret handshakes or passcodes to enter their clubhouse? I hoped so. That's what I wanted. I wanted in. I wanted to belong to something. I drank more Southern Comfort. It burned less going down. Which brings us to the panda, Dr. Robinson said. For the giant panda, mating is what you might call a very slow dance. Frustrating, I'd imagine, mostly because the sexual interest of the female panda lasts on average 72 hours per year. You heard that right, 72 hours per year. Not like you all, 72 hours per day. So it's all very difficult to keep your species going with the odds stacked up against you like that. When everyone stopped laughing, Dr. Robinson looked over at me. He did that sometimes, called me out, as if my opinion would somehow be different than everyone else's. What do you have to say to that, Molly? The whiskey was warm in my throat, giving me a strange sense of courage. I say good for the panda. The fire cracked. Everyone was silent. Then some of the guys began to boo. Dr. Robinson held up his flask. No. Careful, boys. There is power in solidarity. Empathy is a strong emotion. Watch out for that and know what you're up against. The wind gusted and the fire dimmed under the weight of the blowing sand. The guys moved, fanning it back to life. Well, I'm off, gentlemen, and Molly, of course, Dr. Robinson said. I'll leave you all to reach your own conclusions on this wildly and endlessly fascinating subject. We didn't want him to leave. We wanted to keep him there, but he said it was time. He tossed the sticks at his feet onto the fire, a burst of light. Don't stop asking your questions. There are so many things we need to know. Then he left. I didn't know it at the time, but that would become his charge for us. Always this advice, assuring us that there was nothing wrong in not knowing things. Not much later, the party broke up. I walked back to the campus with one of the guys, one of the Carusos, named Shane LeBar. Being with him felt like the icing on the cake of a perfect night. That was a mistake. I made a lot of them that year. Shane was a fast walker. I had to run and skip every 3 or 4 steps to keep up. He was also a fast talker. Quolls, Shane said. They're really fascinating creatures. I laughed. Well, they are, he said. We were young. No one used words like fascinating. He was imitating Dr. Robinson. They all did that. They repeated things he said, acting as if he had come up with those facts and acting as if they had come up with those facts and those ideas. The Carusos even dressed like him. They were untucked flannel shirts that flapped behind them when they walked in the woods. They each had a tiny silver hoop earring in one ear, faded jeans, and big belt buckles. I thought of that as their school uniform, good for hiking, camping, and building bonfires, but also practical in the classroom. I spent a lot of class time looking at Shane. He was that sort, the kind of guy you looked at. He had dark, thick hair that he sometimes pulled back into a ponytail with a kitchen rubber band. Still tan from the summer, he wore 3 rawhide leather necklaces, each with a coin hanging from it. He pulled the coins into his mouth when listening to Dr. Robinson talk. Shane kept on with his animal mating lecture. I would rather have spent the walk back to campus getting to know him better, even if it meant asking the boring freshman questions. Where are you from? Why did you choose Northern? What do you like to do? Why ecology as a major? But Shane was not slowing down. Quolls are ruthless and usually kill the female during the sexual act, he said, and then that long pause. See, they've been on the hunt for weeks, and when they finally capture a female, they're frustrated and impatient and not very careful. They're violent in getting what they want. Unfortunately, they're so exhausted by their trolling for female partners that they often die shortly after sex. I was short of breath and tired of hearing about the mating rituals of animals that I had never encountered and probably never would. I don't even know what a quoll is, I said. You don't? Shane asked. It wasn't something I would lie about. He was annoyed, acting as if I had somehow offended him, but I felt ignored. He wasn't the only one who could tell stories. Hey, have you ever heard about the Amazons? The rainforest, he asked. No, not that, I said. I rushed ahead, but he pulled on my arm as if to get me to stop talking. It is too, he said. No, I'm not saying it's not. All that whiskey was making me belligerent. It's also the name of the longest river in South America, Shane said. Maybe, but I'm talking about something different. This is an ancient tribe of women called the Amazons. Shane didn't say anything, so I thought he might be listening. And I wasn't sure I was getting the facts right. A girl in my high school had done a presentation on them for Women's Day celebration, the first of its kind and not that well attended. Her project had been the only one that was the least bit interesting, and I'd been stunned to learn about the tribe. They used bows and arrows like men, and to make sure that they were proficient in their skill, they chopped off their right breast so nothing could get in the way of their aim. They hated men, and they didn't want anything to do with them. A female tribe dedicated to living without men. They cut off their breasts, Shane asked. They did, I said. I was pretty sure the word Amazon translated into man-hater. It wasn't something I would have misremembered, but I didn't want to come off as aggressive or dismissive or wrong for that matter. I did remember that they each cut off their own breasts as a ritual for power to show their personal strength. Shane stopped walking. Why are you telling me this? I thought you'd like to know, I said. They're fascinating creatures, aren't they? Why would I care about them? Why would I care about quolls? The night had stopped being fun. Do they even live around here? Of course not, he said. They're desert animals. It was a Sisyphean task just talking to him. Maybe he was drunk, maybe it was late, maybe we were just on different wavelengths, and it was time for me to stop staring at him in class and start staring at someone who at least wanted to talk to me. His dorm was up on main campus, and by the time we got there, I had to pee so bad I was having trouble walking. Let me use your bathroom, I have to go, I said, and followed him in. My dorm was all the way down the hill, and I wasn't sure I could hold it any longer. It was a guy's dorm, nowhere near as clean as mine, the all-girl one. His room smelled like pot and Glade air freshener. I never understood the overuse of that cleaning supply. Glade was used for one purpose and one purpose only, to cover up the smell of weed. If you wanted to catch someone smoking, you should just look for the can of Glade. There was only the overhead light, the most horrible light which showed the floor covered with clothes, most likely flannel shirts and white t-shirts, jeans. I went in and peed, keeping my eyes closed, so I didn't have to see anything in the bathroom. There was no toilet paper. Shane was sitting on the bed. There was only the one chair near the table, but it was covered with boxes and books. Want a beer, he asked. He swung open the door to his mini fridge. I took it as a sort of apology and accepted it. I sat beside him. I'll just take a sip of yours. I didn't expect to make out with him, but we were sitting next to each other on the bed, neither of us that interested in the can of beer, which was tasteless. His flannel smelled like campfire, so did his hair, so did mine. We leaned into one another, and then we were making out. That was a surprise. Shane pulled back. Don't, he whispered. I thought I was sitting on his hand and shifted back against the wall. Please don't. I didn't understand why he was whispering. We were alone in the room. There was no one in the other bed. So unless someone was hiding in the closet, we were alone. What? I asked. There was a soft puff of air in my ear. His hands were on my face. The smell of wood smoke on our clothes. I pulled back and opened my eyes. There were bits of leaves caught in his curls. I resisted the urge to pull my fingers through his hair to get them out. Don't fall in love with me, he said. He moved his hands from my face to my shoulder, holding me there with some resistance, slightly pushing me away. I moved back. You shouldn't. Please don't, he said. It started in the base of my throat, a small giggle, and then another. It burst forth, really, and just flew out of my mouth. And suddenly I was laughing, really laughing. I couldn't stop. I tumbled off the bed, which made me laugh harder. We had had one miserable conversation. He stood. He was really angry. You don't know. Girls fall in love with me all the time. I was giggling, which I knew was annoying, but it struck me as hysterical, and I couldn't stop. It's not funny, he said. I know, I said, but when I opened my mouth, I laughed, then almost choked myself, which made me gasp for breath, and that made me laugh harder. Stop it, he said. The door opened, and a second later, someone flicked on the overhead. The room was flooded with yellow fluorescent light. I stood. Shane went over to the mirror and fixed his hair. He pulled all the leaves out. Everything all right? It was Finley. He tossed his sleeping bag onto the other bed. I hadn't realized they were roommates. She's a bitch, Shane said to Finley. That seems severe, way, way over the top. It had been stupid, but there was no reason for meanness. Yeah, Finley asked. That's what I said, Shane said. She's nothing but a big bitch. Come on, I said. It didn't have to be like that. Good for the panda, Shane said. I'll show you what's good for the panda. So many mistakes. I made so many mistakes that first year. Thank you. Yeah? Thank you. And thanks so much to Marty and to Jonathan and Marty and everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. And I hope you read to be Marquette, because Molly gets into a lot of trouble. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Marty.
Well, thank you all for coming tonight. As Sharon and I announced, I announced that Sharon is giving those books away complimentary. She's asking for donations from the library. If you have any questions about anything that for Sharon, I'm sure she's going to be happy to answer any questions back there for you. So please take a moment to stop and talk with Sharon and pick up a copy of the book, and enjoy the evening. It's really beautiful out there tonight, everybody. Thank you.